Hello, my name is Ebony Bagley, and this is the first episode of Caring Communities. Today, I will be speaking with the founder of Peace, Love, and Planet, Gina. Good afternoon, Gina. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. First, tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind Peace, Love, and Planet.
So about 10 years ago, when my daughter started kindergarten here at Farmington Public Schools, I was a little surprised by the lack of maybe recycling and some just fundamental awareness. So I founded Peace, Love, and Planet to help bring sustainable initiatives to the schools, whether it's through recycling efforts or just the basic awareness of reduce, reuse, recycle.
Wonderful. And so how do you work with the schools? Could you tell me a little bit about the environmental education programs that you have?
Sure. So we partner with schools, and depending on where their initiatives are, because no two schools are alike. So while some schools may have recycling in the classrooms, but not recycling in the cafeteria, we kind of take off and help them work on enhancing their awareness. And so when children grow up understanding the importance of conserving resources, I think it helps our community, the health and wellness of our community, really.
Wonderful. And so what are some of the goals when you go into the schools? Like, what are some different goals? I know you said that it depends on the needs of that school.
Right.
So what are some of the goals?
Well, throughout the years that we've been working with schools, the cafeteria seems to be kind of a no man's land, and unfortunately about 40% of cafeteria waste is food. So we will conduct cafeteria awareness programs. Is probably our most successful program because we're able to work with their school's children and create, when children sit down for lunch, we'll just say, there are so many different materials that it becomes really impossible to understand what they can and cannot recycle. So we work with the kids and the neonates who are there every day to help them identify materials that can be captured. And that's, of course, in Farmington Public Schools where we have a really strong recycling program. On the other hand, there are some schools that don't have recycling, so we have to put the emphasis on the reducing part of it, whether that's how you pack your lunch or perhaps encouraging kids to use both sides of the paper, or including the staff and encouraging them to print double-sided. There's some really simple things that the schools can do that not only reduces their waste, but it improves their economic bottom line too. So.
Wonderful. And tell me, how do kids respond to the education, the environmental awareness that you're teaching them in your organization?
So we do host assemblies, which makes it super fun. And the most successful program are those where we're conducting a cafeteria recycling and trash assessment. And then we invite the classrooms back in a small group to examine their waste and make their own predictions and solutions. So once you get the kids involved, it becomes much more real to them, and they're faced with making their own environmentally friendly choices. So for instance, it's not only looking at the waste that we're generating, but as I mentioned, it's really about reducing. So it's reduce, reuse, recycle, and it's reduce is first because that's the most important, is that we just look at how can we reduce the consumption. And to make it a kid-specific solution, I often challenge the kids just to eat all their food because it's social hour in the cafeteria, and a lot of the times, whether it's the juice boxes or maybe it's the carrot that's not looking very appetizing, there's just unfortunately a tremendous amount of food waste. And so by challenging the kids to eat their food, or if they can't eat all of it, if they've packed a lunch, just to close their lunchbox and have it for a snack after school, because as we know, children are starving after school and it might be more enticing to eat after. But also just encouraging children. Simple things. We do an exercise where we ask kids, okay, can everybody move their finger? And naturally, we can. So encouraging kids to turn off their lights or unplug their chargers, and really putting the ownership on what kids are able to do at any age.
Wonderful. Now, I know I was visiting your website, and could you just tell us the name of your website as well?
It's peaceloveandplanet.org. We are an environmental nonprofit, and so a lot of our funding does come from generous donations from the community, and we host fundraisers every year, and that enables us to go into schools and also provide Go Green grants. So every September we offer this grant for student-led initiatives, and so if your group has a great idea, we would rather the students be focusing on promoting why that's so important versus fundraising. For instance, several schools have written grants for water bottle filling stations, and this solves a lot of problems. First of all, recycling in schools is really challenging, not only because of the amount of paper and plastic water bottles that's generated, but also the logistics of going around to classrooms and collecting all of it. So again, it goes back to how do we reduce that? So by putting in water bottle filling stations, the water is purified, and at the top of the machines there is a counter, and it actually calculates every time the machine is used, and so the students can sit there and tally, oh, we've saved 11,000 bottles of water. And so it encourages the children to participate, but it also significantly reduces the volume of plastic bottles that need to be collected and recycled. So it's really a win-win situation for the schools.
Yeah, and it sounds like all of these suggestions that you're giving are super easy and super doable for kids, the parents, the administrators, everyone that's involved. Just going back to your website, I know that the Michigan Green Schools, there's a link for it, a Michigan Green School Toolkit. Could you tell me how that can be so helpful for just getting schools involved and at least on a track to making their schools more green?
So the great thing about Michigan Green Schools, it's a great stepping stone for the schools to get involved. Because a lot of times, you know, whether it's the administration or the staff, they have great intentions, but we don't know where to start. So Michigan Green Schools is a list of 20 initiatives that the school can undertake. You only have to accomplish 10 to 11 to actually get the certification, but it's a great place for the teachers to get ideas on how to bring awareness and really look at instilling environmentally friendly behaviors within our student body.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Gina. We will be back after these messages.
Another hot day in Heritage Park, but look what I found, a place where I can fill my water bottle. Hi, I'm Ashley Smith from the Farmington Hills Nature Center, and welcome to another Nature Calls. I've brought you here today at one of our water filling stations, one of two that we have here in Heritage Park. You can find one over here at the splash pad. The great thing about these water bottle filling stations is it reduces your carbon footprint. By not buying a plastic water bottle, you can refill one that you already have and save that bottle from going into a landfill, but also save the energy from recycling it. By buying one of our reusable water bottles here at the Shark Shack at the splash pad or at the Nature Center, you can reduce your carbon footprint even further by making sure that plastic water bottle never even gets made in the first place, reducing the energy it takes to make that. So let's try it out. The water is nice and cold. Another neat feature about these filling stations is if you look up in the corner, you can actually count how many water bottles have been saved from a landfill. Every time someone fills their water bottle, another tally is added to the count. We have these filling stations at multiple parks throughout the city: Heritage Park, Founders Sports Park, and the Caustic Center. Be sure to visit them. It's a great way to stay hydrated throughout the summer and reduce your carbon footprint.
Welcome back. We are with Gina from Peace, Love, and Planet. Gina, what recent programs and projects has Peace, Love, and Planet been a part of, or what are you currently working on now?
Well, a few years ago we did a student focus group at Farmington Public Schools to understand why there was such a significant drop-off in recycling participation in the middle and high schools. And it was pretty revealing that the students are simply just teenagers too busy and disinterested in, looking at long-term impacts of wastefulness, for lack of better words. So we decided to really focus on elementary schools and upper elementary school children to instill this understanding of how valuable our resources are. And we received a grant from the Bosch Community Fund to send all 800 sixth graders on a tour of the recycle facility in New Boston called Recommunity, and it's the same facility that recycles our residential recycling. So we're in a really great, unique situation where our residential recycling matches our school district recycling, so it's the same materials. And I emphasize that because, as we know, if you look at your trash can or your recycle bin, there are so many different types of plastics that can be recycled and several that cannot. So by taking the children to these on the tours, they're able to not only understand what can and cannot be recycled, but more importantly, we're looking at the environmental impacts and why recycling is just crucial. We're able to save energy, save water resources, as well as reduce our air contamination. And since we live in Michigan and we're surrounded by the world's largest source of fresh water, it really makes sense for us to take care and protect our Great Lakes. So these tours have been going on now for the third year, and we're excited because by sending all students every year in the fifth grade, we had to move it to fifth grade due to some redistricting within our district, but by encouraging and inspiring students through awareness and understanding that their materials are actually getting repurposed and made into new aluminum cans or fleece hats, whatever it is, we're hoping that that behavior is instilled at an early age, so by the time they get to middle school, it's already second nature. So the tours are amazing, and the Recommunity has been really supportive, because obviously if students are aware, not only are they better recyclers at school, but at home as well, which reduces contamination. And contamination in a recycle facility is probably one of the biggest nightmares, only because they have to close their entire production line down to remove things, for instance, plastic bags. So the grocery bags that we get cannot be recycled in your residential nor your school recycling bin. Those need to be returned back to the grocery store that you purchased, and then they can be recycled there. But don't put those in your bin.
Okay. And I hear you talking a lot about grants for teachers, for parents, for students. Is it something that's easy to do? Is it easy to write grants to kind of get the help and the support? I know your website does provide resources, but just kind of walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, grant writing can be challenging, and because we want to give the students an opportunity to practice their own writing skills, we set up our grants as a work template, and so it kind of puts them in charge of looking at all of the different components of putting a project together and ensuring its success. So from looking at who your partners are, to timelines, to what is really your inspiration and why you want to address, whether it's a water bottle filling station, or a lot of gardens have been supported through our grants, and bringing awareness to the importance of eating fresh fruits and vegetables. We love supporting school gardens. We find that children who are actually growing and harvesting their own vegetables are more inclined to try them, at least. They may not like it, but you do have to try something about 20 to 22 times before your taste buds actually may enjoy it. So it's exciting, and the grants are, at least the Go Green grants that you can find on our website, are really straightforward, because like I said, we want kids to be writing them, so we make it pretty simple.
Wonderful. And tell me a little bit about your YouTube. Is it a channel? Is it a video through the Peace, Love, and Planet that I saw on your website?
So several years ago, based on the focus group that we had conducted, we produced a series of 4 environmental films called Be the Solution, because we wanted to focus on kid-specific solutions and what kids can do. So they feature Farmington Public School kids, and one is on energy reduction, one is on recycling and waste reduction. The second one is on admissions, like anti-idling, how we can be better drivers, and by focusing on just slowing our speeds down, how we can actually reduce carbon emissions in our air. So it's really fun, easy. They're 5-minute videos that teachers can show. And again, it focuses on kid-specific solutions. So, and it was just a really fun, exciting project that we did.
How does it feel? I know we talked a lot about what you do and how you're implementing all these amazing things in the schools. How does it feel to do such a good thing and something that you're so passionate about?
Well, I'm very fortunate that I can commit hundreds of hours of volunteer time to helping schools because I love working with kids and they really get it. And you know, when I talk about recycling to kids, for instance, I really have to bring it home to something that they identify with, and all kids love animals. And so when we talk about the importance of conserving resources, you know, and we talk about, well, where do you think that piece of paper comes from? And putting it into kids' terms, they're like, well, it comes from a tree. And it's like, exactly. And when we look at a tree and we think about the forests, who lives in these forests? And the kids are able to identify and say, well, animals. And so when we can bring it down to a child's understanding of protecting forests, protects habitats, and we're protecting animals, I think that that's just a really great simplistic way to get kids to understand the importance and how their actions really make a difference.
Wonderful. All right. We will be back after these brief messages.
Welcome to the Farmington Hills City Hall. As part of the 2007-2008 City Hall Revitalization Project, our building was LEED Gold certified to represent the environmental values that our city upholds. As part of the City Hall Revitalization Project, 94 solar panels were put on this building. The majority of those panels are used to offset our electricity use, producing around 21,000 kilowatts annually, which is enough energy to take about 2 average-sized homes off the grid. 4 of those panels are also used to produce hot water and are able to supplement 50 to 80% of this building's hot water demands on any given day. For more information on the City Hall Revitalization Project, go to www.sustainablefh.com.
Welcome back. I am still joined by Gina of Peace, Love, and Planet. Gina, you're a mother. You have children. How do you get them on board with reducing, reusing, recycling, all of these things? How do we get them on board? Because I also have a 2-year-old, so let me know.
Well, the easiest thing is to remember, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's the collective actions of our entire community, and the little things will add up and make a big difference. So I know that, for instance, we have some water bottles here.
Yeah,
and
I wanted you to talk.
Super convenient. But at the schools, with these water bottle filling stations, we can start to see the actual impact of using all of these disposable bottles. And I'm going to go back to, by just switching to one reusable bottle and using it over and over again, we can eliminate all of this unnecessary consumption. And it's really the consumption I think people tend to forget about. So it's that extraction of resources that's causing irreversible environmental damage. And then we, of course, have the production component, which uses a tremendous amount of waste. It generates, a tremendous amount of energy consumption and waste, the transportation to get these to the grocery stores, and then, of course, that consumption and disposal. So we can eliminate all of that by just switching to one reusable bottle.
So do you find that keeping it simple, keeping, easy solutions for kids is what will keep them kind of involved, as well as their parents involved in reducing and recycling?
Right, and leading by example, and remembering your bottle before you walk out the door. Of course.
Now I know you brought some things for us today, so could you just go ahead and show us some easy things that we all can do, that we all can, do our part in to help our community.
So the next thing I brought is, I know that these pumps of soap are super helpful, whether it's in your shower or by your sink. And if we just kind of went back to the old bar of soap, then you can eliminate the need to use all of these plastic single-use bottles and go back to the old bar of soap. Of course, in a school setting and institutions, these can be really convenient. So you could just go to a reusable pump and just go to like a fillable type pump. That's one option.
All right.
The other option is, of course, we all eat 3 meals a day, maybe more, and we use a lot of paper napkins. Paper, which comes from trees, and I would love to preserve as many forests as we can, and just kind of go back to switching to cloth napkins. My kids' friends think we're super fancy, and it's just like, no, I'm a nerd, and I like to reduce waste. So this was another simple switch that we've made at home, and that's something that a lot of, I think people could pick up as well. And then, of course, paper towel. I cook a lot. I love to cook, but paper towel tends to add up, and so I kind of switched to using, these are just some linen towels that you can get anywhere, and I tend to use these. They're super absorbent, and it's something that I can use over and over again, and we don't have to use these anymore. So those are kind of some simple tips that I have incorporated into our house, and then I pack my children's lunch, and so if I could show you that. I love the idea of packing waste-free lunches. The convenient.
Because what are some things that people waste without even realizing it in children's lunches and things?
Well, we spend a lot of times in cafeterias doing these recycle and trash assessments. So we have the kids kind of separate out all of their prepackaged food, whether it's granola bars or bags of chips or the infamous Ziploc baggie that you put your lunch in or your sandwich in. And so a lot of that is really disposable because none of those materials are recyclable. And so what we did is we kind of switched to this lunch box that has several compartments in it. Yeah, and so not only can you focus your lunch on fresh fruits and vegetables, but each compartment is sealed off. You can put your sandwich in there and then, of course, pack water and have the kids drink it. And so the nice thing about this is it's only 2 things. You're not losing lids and bottoms, and it's only 2 things to keep track of. It's dishwasher safe, and it comes in a cold thermos, type of lunch box. And you can get these anywhere. I mean, the nice thing about our community is that the local stores have really picked up on providing options for people to pack lunches. And I think, from the health perspective of that, the fewer the ingredients in our food and being able to pack more fresh, wholesome foods, it's better brain power for our kids, it gives them more energy, and I think it's doing everybody a favor. So
I think so too. So Gina, if you could just give our audience one key takeaway from everything that you've shared with us today, what would it be?
Well, I really, like to encourage people to get out into nature and explore with your children. We have some beautiful parks around here. Of course, if you haven't been up north, there's just amazing nature everywhere. And the kids who are able to go out and play are more apt to really protect what they love. And so by introducing that to your children at a young age and to explore and to dig into dirt, whether you're starting a really small garden at home, I mean, just even a pot of tomatoes is a way to help the kids understand where our food comes from, as well as showing that appreciation for, the amount of work that goes into, growing one tomato plant. And then when we go to a grocery store and we think about all of the food that's on our shelves and the amount of energy and water that went into manufacturing all of this, I think it's something that our community can really take hold of and understand the importance of what's going into our food and maybe have a greater appreciation for it. Because unfortunately, statistics show from a recent report from an organization called ReFed, as they're looking at the amount of food waste, 40% of the food that is produced in our world is uneaten. And it's going to become a growing problem as our population continues to grow. We're looking at, by the year 2050, about 9 billion people in our world. And so by addressing the food situation now and looking at how we can better reduce the waste of the food and eat our food. I think it sounds pretty simple, but I think it's a really great first start.
I think so. It sounds like a great start to me. Anything else you'd like to add in terms of tips or things that we can do within our households to really help the environment and make it better?
Right.
Outside of
Well,
everything you've already shared.
Choose one thing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So choose one thing. And one thing I have not mentioned that's really easy for all of us to do is to not idle our cars. I know 10 degrees out and we want to have a warm car. However, our schools, particularly when you see these large waiting lines of people waiting to pick up their children at school, the cars are typically idling. And all of our schools have fresh air intake valves that we want to keep the indoor air quality healthy for our children. And as we sit outside and idle our cars, we're actually bringing a lot of that carbon monoxide into our schools, and children's lungs are working twice as hard as adult lungs, and we want to keep our children healthy and safe and our air quality safe. So by just turning off your car, the interior temperature is going to stay warm for up to a half hour. So, I think that's one thing that you don't have to go out and buy anything new, you don't have to do anything new, you just turn your car off when you can. Anything over 30 seconds, they say just turn it off. It doesn't impact the engine like it used to. When I was a child, they said to not turn it on and off. And it just, with technology, that's not an issue anymore. But we are creating unnecessary air pollution when we sit there with our cars idling. So.
All right. Well, Gina, thank you so much for talking to us today and telling us all about Peace, Love, and Planet. Again, your website is?
It's peaceloveandplanet.org, and there's plenty of great tips. We post frequently on new exciting things going on in the community, and again, just easy tips that anybody can incorporate into their lifestyle.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Gina. And that is all for our show today, our first episode of Caring Communities. I'm your host, Ebony Bagley, and I will see you very soon.